Hi everyone, it's Peter's Go for Music as a Journey. Today's video is going to be just another simple themed one. Today I wanted to take a look at albums that have a number in the title, but are not typically like a 1, 2, 3 type of thing. It's either a Greek or Roman prefix, or it's an ordinal number, or just the number is somehow used in the title. Now, it just is something that occurred to me, I don't know, a while back now, probably a year or more ago, that some of the albums that I had a number in the title, and it was quite obvious that that number represented the ordinal number of the album, but it was not simply called like, seventh album or third album or something like that. And of course, there have been many bands that have used like Roman numerals or even just regular Arabic numbers for their titles. For example, like Led Zeppelin 2, Led Zeppelin 3, or Chicago being famous for almost every album actually having a Roman numeral in it. I think they're up to like 31 or something like that now. So anyway, what I thought I'd do just for fun is just to list off some of the albums that most of them I actually have in my collection. Some of them I don't have, but they are by bands whose albums I do have. And a couple of them I just thought I'd mention because I came across them as I was looking at other things and just added them to the list. So this list has been slowly compiling over the last, I don't know, 2 years or something like that. Every time I found an album that fit the criteria, I threw it on the list. So anyway, let's take a look. So first of all, a band who I've never had any of their albums because I'm not so much into Southern rock, but I had a friend of mine who likes a lot of similar music to me, and I remember in junior high school or high school it was, he went and just started collecting like all their vinyl albums. He started buying all their old ones, and they were his favorite band for a while. I'm talking about ZZ Top. And ZZ Top's first album was called Their First Album. And as I just read about it here this evening on Wikipedia, it was given that title because they were pretty sure there were going to be other albums, or at least they certainly hoped so. Okay, getting on to the second album. We've got some various creative bands here. So first of all on the list we have Twice Removed by Sloan. And I have the CD on display back here because it was kind of easy to grab. You're not getting any glare on it or anything, are you, from the light? Yeah. I've made a couple of videos about Sloan, actually I think 3 altogether. They are a Canadian power pop quartet. Power pop is just such an simple umbrella term. They're actually a very interesting band with a lot of different styles over the course of their history, but essentially they're being called a power pop band. Their second album from 1994 was called Twice Removed. Then we have a band whose album I have. It's packed in a box under this table somewhere. It's a band called Mayblitz. They were an England-based band, but with only one English member. The other 2 members were Canadians, expats living in England. And their second album was called The 2nd of May. That makes sense. And following on that theme there, another a Canadian band actually based in Canada that were called A Foot in Cold Water. Their second album was called The Second Foot in Cold Water. All right, why not? Then we have, okay, so this was kind of interesting. There was a band in the late 60s called The Left Bank. You may have heard of them. And the reason why they got my attention was because Steven Tyler of Aerosmith actually sang backing vocals on a couple of tracks on the second album and was credited under his birth name, which I've now forgotten. I mentioned it in my video about Aerosmith anyway earlier this year. So anyway, I happened to be watching a YouTube channel called Pop Goes the 60s, and it was just like only shortly after I discovered Steven Tyler sang backing vocals on a Left Bank album, I happened to see this video on YouTube about the history of the Left Bank, and their second album was called The Left Bank 2. 2 as in T-O-O. Yes, that's it. The Left Bank 2 as well, also. All right, then. That's it for 2s. If you know any more, by the way, please feel free to add them in the comments. I think if I get enough, it might be fun to do another video. Unless, of course, nobody cares. Whatever. Nobody really cared about my Rain Songs video. I was going to do space songs later. But anyway, 3. So there's actually, there's 4 on the 3 list. One of them is called 3 Friends, and this was the third album by Gentle Giant, and it was a concept album about 3 friends who were school days friends who later on each went off into a different career. One of them becoming a construction worker, one of them becoming a painter, and one of them becoming, I think it was a lawyer or something like that. And the different songs talk about, you know, how their life is, with the construction worker working all day and the painter becoming an alcoholic as well as a successful artist, which is actually one of my favorite songs of the 70s that I forgot to mention in my favorite songs of the 70s videos. Peel the paint from that album. All right, 3 friends, and then on the subject of 3 people, we are back to ZZ Top with their 3rd album, Tres Hombres. And now this is why I actually got the ZZ Top first album on the list, because it just popped into my head today as I was driving to the supermarket, ZZ Top's album, Tres Hombres, and I thought, is that their 3rd album? It probably is, and so I looked it up, and when I checked the discography, I found, yes, Tres Hombres is their 3rd album, and their first album is their first album. Okay, anyway, ZZ Top. And then we've got Extreme. Their 3rd album was 3 Sides to Every Story, which is actually, I think, a really cool album, especially the 3rd part. There's, what is it? There's your story, there's my story, and there's the truth. And the 3rd part, the truth, is basically like 3 songs put together with all sorts of parts to them and so on. It's actually quite a progressive arrangement, really, from Extreme. So 3 sides to every story, and of course then those 3 lads, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, their 3rd album being called Trilogy. Why the heck not, huh? Okay. And that is actually, out of the first 4 albums, that's the only one I don't have yet. Probably will have to get it at some point. Okay, then moving on to 4. Bachman Turner Overdrive's 4th album was called 4-Wheel Drive. Actually, I don't have that, but I have a compilation album that includes that song on. So, yes, 4-Wheel Drive. And then next we have a band probably most of you won't know. It is a Japanese pop rock band called Garnet Crow. I did a whole video about them, and their 4th album was called I'm Waiting For You, with the Arabic numeral 4 in there for 4. So, yeah, their 4th album. Okay. Oh, and of course, Black Sabbath, Volume 4. Sure. And I remember reading somewhere, I don't know, it was Geezer, who said, like, I don't know why we called it, why it was called Volume 4, because there wasn't a Volume 1, 2, or 3. So, I actually didn't find anything with 5. I was hoping to find a quinta or a penta or a 5th or something like that, but I didn't have any albums with 5 in. Just 5, Roman numeral 5. There are actually quite a few of those. And then, of course, there was Symphony X, which is the 5, the New Mythology Suite, but it's a Roman numeral 5, so I wasn't going to let that slip by. Okay, so then we're going to move on to 6, and I have only one for 6. It's Dream Theater's 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. That's it. That's all I have for 6. 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. But we have quite a few for 7. So let's start off with Triumphs. Triumph's 7th album was called Thunder 7, and that was actually the first Triumph album I ever got. When I think it's pretty cool, a pretty cool album. So Triumph Thunder 7, then Golden Earring. Golden Earring's 7th album is called 7 Tears, and it has 7 songs on it. And it is actually, of the 3 Golden Earring albums I have, 7 Tears is my favorite, especially for the song She Flies on Strange Wings, which actually could have also made it to my great songs of the 70s list. Okay, what else do we have? Moody Blues with 7th Sojourn. Makes sense. Their 7th sojourn into the studio was called 7th Sojourn. And then we had, oh, of course, Iron Maiden with 7th Son of a 7th Son. It's almost a tongue twister at this point in the game for me. 7th Son of a 7th Son for Iron Maiden's 7th album. And the Tea Party band I've also made a video about last year sometime. I made 2 videos about them. Anyway, the Tea Party, a kind of power trio from Canada, their 7th album was called 7 Circles. But it's a little bit kind of hard to count, because I guess you have to count from their indie debut and then their major label debut, Splendor Solace, and then Edges of Twilight, and then Transmission, and then Triptych, and then Interzone Mantras, and then Seven Circles. But for the longest time, their indie debut was not available, so I always wondered how they counted it. Was it the compilation album, Tangents, that fell in between there? Was it the EP, Alhambra? Not sure, but now that the debut was, the indie debut was re-released on CD, I introduced it in my last video, I guess we can count from that one. And so Seven Circles is indeed the 7th full-length studio album by the Tea Party. Alright, Seven Circles, so now we are moving on to 8. And of course, oh yeah, Styx. Pieces of 8. Styx's 8th album is called Pieces of 8. Actually, this is I think one of the most popular albums by the band. It is a little bit more of a hard rocking album and has a lot of really cool songs on there, including Renegade and what is it? What is that one about the working guy? Blue Collar Man, that's it. Long Nights, Blue Collar Man. Yeah. Alright, so Styx, Pieces of 8. Then another Dream Theater one, Octavarium. Which actually I think is a pretty cool album. And the whole song, Octavarium, is all done in 8s. It's in 8 parts. And there's something about also like musically there are some parts that are also measured in 8s. And there's this like whole segment where I think like James LeBrie's voice is getting a little bit gradually more and more intense, and in the background Mike Portnoy is counting off like 1 and he sings something, and then 2 and James LeBrie sings something, and 3, and it finally gets up where to 8 where he's just like screaming, you know, Octavary and whatever. Anyway, a pretty cool song, and at the very end the song actually finishes where it started. So something about a cycle of 8, like an octave going around and coming back again. And the guy there, what's his name now? The Daily Doug, who is classical composer. He dissected that song, I think, and mentioned it, and it was pretty cool. So anyway, Octavarium, Moody Blues, their 8th album was called Octave. How appropriate for a band. And actually, as I was snooping around on the internet last weekend, I found that Barclay James Harvest, their 8th album was called Octoberon. But actually, I don't have anything by Barclay James Harvest. I just know of them. I think I have a download. Anyway, then I had nothing for 9. I didn't have anything for 9. And I had only one thing for 10. Well, not quite. Just a moment. But anyway, a definite 10 is Iron Maiden's 10th album, The X Factor, which I don't have. It's one of the 2 Blaze Bayley albums, and it's not like I'm not curious about it or that I think it might not be any good. I just don't have it. Anyway, so Iron Maiden's 10th album was called The X Factor. And then, I don't know if I can dig it out right here. That's kind of... So this is the 10th album by Sloan, and it is called The Double Cross. And it kind of has a special meaning because, of course, a cross is an X, which is a Roman numeral 10. But this is the double cross, so it is their 10th album, earning them 1 cross, and it is released on their 20th year anniversary, therefore a double cross. So I don't know if that exactly counts, since there are actually 2 X's, but one of them represents that this is their 10th album. Maybe that gets in there somehow, I don't know. Okay. And the only other one I have after 10 is 13, and that's Anvil's 13th album called This Is 13. And as I said in my Anvil video, and as probably anybody who's a fan of Anvil knows, all of their albums have 3 words where the first letter of the first word and the first letter of the third word are the same. So This Is 13 is T-I-T, which spells tit, doesn't it? Unless it's fifth, if you want to count it as a TH. And that's it. That's all I got for this kind of a theme here. So if anybody knows of anything else, please list it in the comments. And like I said, if I get enough of them together, I might just mention them again in another video sometime, or I might just give an honorable mention later on. Now, before I run off, I've got a couple of things. I am trying to put together one of my more, researched videos, and I haven't finished it yet. But in the meantime, I'd like to tell you that in my next video, I will be able to feature music from a couple of albums. I'm going to be talking about these two albums in my next video. I just have to finish listening to them. I only got them the other day. So we'll see about that probably by next weekend. Thanks for watching today. Comments appreciated, and thank you always. See you next time.